Tonight, a story about a missing person where fate seems unusually cruel. Less than 1 month after an Ohio man lost his wife to a deadly disease, his son mysteriously disappeared. Brian Shaffer, a medical student, was last seen after a night out with friends. Here's Rob Stafford.
On a spring night, the city of Columbus reflects off the Olentangy River as students at Ohio State reflect on the end of another school year. There's the usual stress of final exams, but this year on this campus, something unusual: fear and foreboding.
You think something terrible happened?
I truly do.
It's a mystery with tantalizing clues on tape. 1 minute, this young man was a grainy image on a surveillance video. The next minute, he was gone, and police are baffled.
All the tips that we've received thus far has turned into nothing.
And one student is living a nightmare until another student is found.
I want him home. You know, I want to see him every day.
She's talking about 27-year-old Brian Shaffer, a second-year medical student who seemed to have everything going for him: good looks, good grades, and a girlfriend he adored. Awesome and amazing is how he described Alexis Wagoner on his MySpace profile, and she says the same about him.
It's brilliant. He's handsome, he's sweet and loyal and caring.
Like Brian, Alexis is in second-year med school. Like Brian, she's super smart and striking. The two were inseparable. They'd planned a trip to Florida for spring break, and they had even bigger plans.
Are you convinced he's the guy?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much since day one, I really thought of him as kind of the love of my life.
Want to get married?
Yeah.
Then, one spring night, Brian vanished. Brian was last seen in this Columbus neighborhood, not far from the Ohio State campus. It was early in the morning on Saturday, April 1st. Brian had been out bar hopping with a friend from school. The evening began about 9 p.m. when Brian met up with his friend Clint Florence. The two were former roommates and drinking buddies. That Friday was supposed to be just another night out, as Clint told MSNBC's Rita Cosby.
Me and Brian always went out. There's nothing new. Sat down, opened a tab, and, had 3, 4, 5 shots of liquor.
Alexis, visiting her family for the weekend, was checking in by phone and called Brian at 10 p.m.
Did he sound at all concerned when you talked with him Friday night?
Nope.
He wasn't worried on the phone?
Nope.
Did he sound down, depressed in any way?
He sounded fine.
After Brian and Alexis spoke, Clint told the police that he and Brian walked to some more bars and downed some more shots, and then, with a friend of Clint's in tow, ended the night at the bar where they'd started. This surveillance tape shows them at 1:15 a.m. coming up the escalator to the bar. That's Brian leaning on the handrail. Once inside, they ran into a couple of young women Clint knew.
And Brian was doing his usual thing and was talking to those two girls.
At 1:55 a.m., Brian made his final appearance on the video. He was outside the bar chatting with the young women. Then he walked out of frame and disappeared. Police say it appears he went back into the bar. Minutes later, Clint and his friend got ready to go.
It was closing time about 2:10, 2 o'clock, and Brian was nowhere to be seen.
They told police they called Brian's cell and got no answer, even checked the bathroom, but no luck. So they left without him. Saturday passed without a word from Brian. By Sunday morning, Alexis was growing more and more concerned. She hadn't talked to Brian since that Friday night call, and they were due to leave for Florida the next morning, and he still wasn't answering his cell.
I was really scared.
Late that night, Alexis says she began what would become a ritual, going to Brian's apartment to see if by some miracle he'd come home. Inside, she broke down. Since then, she says she's cried millions of tears.
I came here every single day the first few weeks and just, laid here in the middle of his bed and just sobbed.
5 weeks after Brian disappeared, and after an intensive investigation, Columbus police still have no idea where Brian could be. Sergeant John Hurst is the lead investigator.
Any sign he's used his credit cards?
No, there's no sign of credit card usage.
Cell phone?
No cell phone usage?
Buses, airplanes?
Nothing.
One part of the mystery is how Brian left the building without being caught on tape. Both bar exits are covered by cameras, as is the escalator that leads to the street. Outside the bar, out of camera view, are stairs and an elevator that lead to the first floor. Once on the first floor, the only way out, without being seen on tape, would be through a service exit that leads to a construction site with doors to the street. But why would Brian go that way?
There's no reason for anybody to want to go out that area. It's heavily under construction and would be difficult sober.
Police say it's possible that because Brian was drinking heavily that night, he may have been vulnerable to foul play. If Brian tried to walk back to his apartment half a dozen blocks away, he would have been an easy target. Police say there's a significant amount of crime in that neighborhood. In the meantime, Brian's father, Randy, is desperate to know what happened to his son.
What has been the toughest moment for you?
Just not knowing or understanding what, why, where, how. I mean, there's just nothing that really fits.
This ordeal has been even more devastating for Randy because just 4 weeks before Brian disappeared, his wife of nearly 29 years, Brian's mother, died of cancer.
I just don't understand why I would have to go through so much.
Brian spent that last night before he went out with his friends, consoling his dad.
He was concerned about me. He was going to go out drinking that night earlier. And he told them, guys, I have to be there for my dad, you know.
So he waited to go out that night?
Because he wanted to be with me.
Now his father would give anything to be with him.
Somebody out there has to know something. No matter how small or whatever it may be, please don't be afraid to call. Please help me find my son.
If you know anything about Brian Shaffer's disappearance or to learn more about the case, log on to our website at dateline.msnbc.com.